The morning began with the mundane rhythm of a typical Tuesday. The hiss of espresso machines, the distant hum of commuter traffic, and the golden sun reflecting off suburban windows. Neighbors waved to one another while retrieving newspapers, and school buses screeched to a halt at the corners of quiet intersections, oblivious to the fact that the ecosystem was about to reset. The first sign of the anomaly was the eerie silence of the local birds, followed by a frantic fluttering as a quartet of Microraptor zhao-yanus and the tiny Zhongjanosaurus yangi glided down from the oak trees, their iridescent feathers shimmering as they landed on porch railings like prehistoric crows. Before anyone could process the strange sight, the suburban peace was torn apart. A Velociraptor mongoliensis burst from behind a row of trash cans, its sickle claws clicking rhythmically against the concrete as it pursued a jogger with terrifying, calculated speed. In the backyard gardens, the mid-sized Deinonychus antiropus and the sturdy Atosaurus mongoliensis began weaving through fences with predatory grace, turning manicured lawns into a labyrinth of shadows. The panic peaked when a Pyroraptor olympius sprinted across the main boulevard, its bright plumage a blur against the gray asphalt, just as the ground began to tremble. Emerging from the fog of the local park, the massive Utahraptor ostromysorum let out a low, guttural hiss that vibrated through the glass of every nearby home, transforming a sunny morning into a desperate struggle for survival as the ancient pack claimed the streets. By midday, the facade of civilization had completely crumbled, replaced by a primal hierarchy where humans were no longer at the apex. The local high school became a fortress of shattered glass, and echoing screams as a pack of Deinonychus antiropus stalked the linoleum hallways, their muscular frames reflected in the trophies of the display cases they bypassed. Outside, the once busy transit hub was a graveyard of idling engines. A Pyroraptor olympius perched atop a stalled city bus, its scarlet plumage fanned out in a macabre display of dominance, while it chirped signals to an Atosaurus mongoliensis rooting through an overturned delivery truck nearby. Residents who attempted to flee via the rooftops found no sanctuary, as the four-winged Microraptor zhao-yanus and the agile Zhongjanosaurus yangi swooped from chimney stacks with hawk-like precision, nipping at anything that moved in the open air. The true horror, however, remained at street level, where the Velociraptor mongoliensis utilized the abandoned cars as tactical cover, flushing survivors into the center of the boulevard. It was there that the Utahraptor ostromysorum waited, a 600-kilogram wall of feather and fury that moved with a terrifying, heavy thud, systematically clearing houses by kicking through reinforced walls as if they were made of cardboard. As the sun began to dip, casting long, jagged shadows across the blood-slicked pavement, the raptors began to vocalize in a haunting, rhythmic chorus, claiming the suburban sprawl as their new, sprawling nesting ground. As night fell, the once vibrant neighborhood transformed into the silent, skeletal remains of the modern world, illuminated only by the rhythmic pulsing of dying streetlights and the distant, orange glow of unattended fires. The Velociraptor mongoliensis shifted from active pursuit to a terrifyingly patient siege, tapping their toe claws against the glass of second-story windows, while the Microraptor zhao-yanus and Zhongjanosaurus yangi drifted through the smoky air like prehistoric owls, snatching anything that dared to move in the shadows. Inside a local grocery store, the aisles became a lethal maze. A Deinonychus antiropus stalked the frozen food section, its breath fogging the glass as it listened for the frantic heartbeat of survivors hiding behind industrial refrigerators. Outside, The Pyroraptor olympias and Adasaurus mongoliensis patrolled the parking lot in a grim partnership, their feathers matted with the dust of collapsed brickwork as they guarded the perimeter of their new territory. The true terror of the midnight hour belonged to the Utahraptor ostromyzorum, which had begun to renovate the town square, dragging heavy debris to create a central nesting mound beneath the town's clock tower. As the clock struck 12, a sound that usually signaled the end of a day now signaled a permanent change in the world's order. The raptors didn't just inhabit the town, they had terraformed it into a hunting ground, where the flick of a feather or the click of a claw was the last thing any human would ever hear. The dawn of the new Mesozoic didn't bring a rescue party, but rather a cold, terrifying permanence, as the makeshift barricades of the human resistance finally buckled under the weight of an organized, multi-species siege. The Utahraptor ostromyzorum moved with a newfound, chilling calmness, no longer just a predator, but a territorial lord, systematically crushing the last of the suburban bunkers, while the Adasaurus mongoliensis and Deinonychus antiropus stood guard over the rubble like feathered sentinels. Above, the sky was no longer the domain of planes or birds, as swarms of Microraptor zauinus and Jungjanosaurus youngi clouded the sun, their chatter a constant, mocking reminder that the high ground had been lost forever. The Pyroraptor olympias and the relentless Velociraptor mongoliensis began to venture further into the surrounding woodlands, not as invaders, but as an established apex force expanding their borders into every valley and canyon. By the time the last radio signal flickered into static, it was clear that the invasion was actually a reclamation. The cities were becoming overgrown nests, the highways were transformed into migratory trails, and the human era was reduced to a footnote in a world that once again belonged to the sickle-clawed kings of the earth. The concrete arteries of the old world finally succumbed to the green surge as a silent, interspecies pact took hold, erasing the last traces of human industry. In the shadow of crumbling skyscrapers, the Utahraptor ostromyzorum stood as a towering shepherd of the new wild, its low thrumming calls coordinating with the howling of wolf packs to flush out the remaining urban stragglers. The Deinonychus antiropus and Adasaurus mongoliensis moved in strange, fluid tandem with mountain lions and coyotes, weaving through rusted car frames to reclaim the valleys, while the Pyroraptor olympias utilized its keen senses to guide herds of deer back into the heart of what were once city parks. High in the canopy of overgrown high-rises, the Microraptor Shaoyanus and Jungjanosaurus youngi shared the thermal vents with hawks and falcons, acting as aerial scouts that signaled the approach of any lingering mechanical threats. Even the Velociraptor mongoliensis had adapted, its twitchy, lethal intelligence now focused on dismantling the fences and barriers that had once partitioned the earth, working alongside great horned owls in a nocturnal symphony of feathers and fur. As the forest swallowed the suburbs and the rivers broke through their concrete dams, a profound, primitive peace settled over the planet. The raptors and the modern beasts had forged a world where the only law was the cycle of the hunt, and the footprint of man was being washed away by the rain.